Today's podcast is sponsored by Team Talk. Team Talk is a mental health charity that deals with men's mental health and links in with football as well. The charity aims to create more awareness for men's mental health and also provide an opportunity for these men who are struggling to come along and try and improve their lifestyle and speak to people about their struggles. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well, and with a link in the description down below. How are we doing, guys? And welcome back to the Coach's Corner podcast. Today we have a very special guest on with us, a man that has played with Hibs, Raith, Ross County, Partick Thistle, amongst other clubs, and a man who's also managed Cowdenbeath, Scotland under-21s, Alloa, Airdrie, currently Clyde, and won the 2012 and 2013 Scottish Cup with St Mirren. It's Danny Lennon. How are you doing, Danny?
Yeah, I'm very, very well, Louis. Thank you for having me on.
Good, brilliant to have you on.
Great.
So what we're going to do, guys, is today we're going to talk a wee bit about Danny's past with coaching, how he's got to where he is just now, and a little couple of other things as well. So first up, Danny, we're just going to be talking about obviously how you managed to get into coaching. So having played before and played at a very high level, what got you interested in coaching?
I think it was the influence of the managers that I played under. There's no doubt that I took some great deal of positives from every one of them, and some things that you wouldn't take from others. And I think you add that on to the wee bit of mixture that you maybe develop your own style of management. But I always asked questions in the game. I was always keen in taking notes of training drills, passing drills, at that particular time. Alec Miller, who came from St Mirren to Hibs at that time, was a very, very shrewd tactician and great knowledge in the game, and probably, ahead of his time in terms of what he brought to the club at the time. Started to bring in sports science with Brian Ewan, all that type of thing, and that's stuff that you just take for granted now. But I always had a love for it. But one of the biggest things for me, I think nothing beats playing with, but certainly coaching and managing certainly falls second best to me, on that. And I love football. To me, it's a beautiful game. It's a theme that, has ran with me through my whole life, and I'm very grateful for that you're able to do something that you enjoy to do. And winning and playing, a good game or winning a game is one of the most satisfying and rewarding feelings ever. So it is when something comes together, and it's given me great memories, and I continue to go on those memories. I've had a relatively successful career in any club that I've went, but I'm still very much hungry for more, and you want to go and try and get back to the levels where you were. I want to go and manage and compete against the best, and to challenge myself every time. And I still have that same ambition as I was a wee boy, want to make my debut for Hibs, and I'm still like that as a middle-aged coach now, or probably a young manager still at the age of 50. You're classed as young, but I still have that ambition to going and winning more big trophies and managing in the Premier League or higher again.
It's clear to see, obviously, like the fact that the love of football's continued right through, and as you were saying, that you can see straight away that you're wanting that progress, you want to just keep going, and it's something, even as a coach myself, obviously know anywhere near the level that you've coached or played, it's something that resonates with coaches like myself as well, that hunger, that desire to just keep going and try and progressing as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Louis. That's it's in your blood. It's like you need your daily fix. I can understand alcoholics. I can understand drug users, etc. You need that daily fix, and it's very much like myself. I need to get out there and be involved in the coaching, and that's what I miss sorely now. That at Clyde, it's not full time. You're limited to what you do and what you're trying to cram in the 2 to 3 nights that you're there. I'm very fortunate that I'm involved with younger kids at Planet Soccer. That I get a wee I get a wee buzz out of that, you know, in developing younger players and letting younger ones fall in love with the game. You know, I think that's very, very important that we create that environment for kids to fall in love with it. And you know, as I said, they're very, very hungry, always challenging yourself, never happy enough, you know, with the next training session. How can you improve it? You know, the next performance. And, you know, football is such a great emotional roller coaster, so it is. And I can never see me getting off that roller coaster, to be fair, to be honest with you.
That's the thing, it's a hard, as you were saying, it is a fix, and it's hard to get off that fix with football, especially since we've everybody that I know, and certainly anybody involved in football, has had it for such a young age. Just see, when you were talking about like your coaching style, obviously getting into coaching and developing your own coaching style, obviously you're saying that there's people that you learned off of, the goods and bads. Was there any other ways you came about learning or trying to develop your own coaching style and philosophy for the game?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think you've always got to look at what the best practices are out there and what the top coaches are doing. As I said there, I learnt a great deal from, you know, John Blackley, who gave me my first opportunity in football. Alec Miller, fantastic tactician. Jimmy Nicholl, you know, his enthusiasm, larger in life, you know, what an appetite he had for the game and a pleasure to go and play for. John Lambie, winner, you know, he knew how to surround himself with good pros and gel them together, had a good eye for a player. You know, Brian Hamilton at Northern Ireland, Laurie McMenemy, you know, guys that had been at the top of the game. And you take a wee bit of each and every single one of them. Some things you don't take, as I said, but I think what's the most important thing is you take the good things or the things that you feel that you could maybe develop, maybe steal, and then develop and make them your own. But I think it's important that you develop your own personality as well, and your own style, you know, what works for you. And I think, you know, regarding what level that you're at and what particular club at, I think your style and your philosophy can bend in between that and the level of what budget you've got and what league you're performing in. So I think I don't think it's set in stone that, well, everybody thinks that Danny Lennon, you know, his philosophy, and he wants to get the ball down and play the beautiful game out for the back. But sometimes you've got to bend. Yeah. So you know, you've got to bend. And I look at, you can see the basics and the fundamentals of what a coach is. And I'm a big believer that if you're coming up against the next again opponent, you know, I don't think you have to look too far ahead than what the philosophy of the coach is, if he's an experienced coach, in which style they're going to play, you know, because very often it doesn't change. And I think that's why it's important as you get more experienced and more knowledgeable, you know, that's where it then comes down to your recruitment, you know, putting that jigsaw together.
It's good that you say that, because I know I've seen something before. It was like people were talking about Pep's philosophy. So I read a lot about like Pep, Nuno Espirito Santo, Sir Alex Ferguson, and people are saying, would Pep adapt and be the same manager if, for example, say he was coaching Leyton Orient with their budget and a difference to, say, Man City and Barcelona? And as you're saying, that you will need to adapt to these different environments as well.
Yeah, I think that's important because, no disrespect, you mentioned Leyton Orient there and where I am at Clyde, you know, overall, and regardless of where Pep Guardiola and the top coaches are at Ferguson, you know, it's to be, everybody says, what makes a successful manager? Winning. Pure and simple as that. You know, it's great if you get your style and your philosophy coming across with that. And I think that's important, that you do see your own character stamped throughout your team, you know, in the way that you want the game to play, to be played. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm sure even if Pep Guardiola was managing Leyton Orient, he would still want to challenge. He would still want to try and improve these players to play the beautiful game in the way that he sees it being painted. You know, I think managers are like artists. They've got a blank canvas there, you know, in the budget, and it's up to us to get out there and get the paints, the oils and the brushes and start to put that all together and try and make a beautiful picture. But it doesn't always make a beautiful picture to win a game of football. And I'm sure If Pep was at a club like that, or one of the top coaches at a smaller club, you know, you find a way because you have to win to survive.
Mm-hmm. That's true. As in, like, nobody wants to employ a manager that loses consistently.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it shows in the resume as well, doesn't it? Just we were talking about coaching, obviously like winning and losing as well. Have you had any setbacks within your coaching career or even playing career that made it a wee bit rough, and how you overcame it, and it's made you come out the other side, or maybe changed your philosophy, the way you were thinking?
Yeah, too many to mention, Lou. You know, and I think if you're going to get into this game, and even young kids today, you know, I coach a lot of kids, and I see them in drills where they'll do, you know, the repetition, and they'll maybe be successful 8 out of 10 times, and there'll be that ninth one, and they'll maybe make a mistake in it, and their head goes. And I stop them right there and then. I say, because if you're not prepared to make a mistake, get out of football now. Because it's all about making mistakes. I've got a saying that, you know, I've never made a mistake in my life. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work. And I think that's a continuous development. I think you've got to be a quick learner. You know, you don't want to always fail, and you've got to analyse why you failed, and you've got to learn from that quickly so that you don't perhaps stumble across that again, or when the next opportunity comes and says, well, I remember that and I've done this, let's try something different here, or I've seen that. Because I think what coaches are, we're the biggest thieves in the world, and I remember as a young coach, you know, in Scotland, a lot of coaches were frightened to share, you know, drills, what they had, the Bible. I'd been more than open to give anybody access to my training drills, you know, the way that I coach, etc. I would give them absolutely anything there, because I think it's all in the personality of the coach, how it's delivered, which is the most important part of it. And then you get other ones there that will maybe take something, or they've seen something different, I've done it myself, and you develop it, and you maybe add a little bit onto it here. And, you know, we're the biggest thieves ever. So we are.
I think I'll certainly take you up and take the session one as well anyway.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. More than welcome.
But that's the thing, it's like each person's perspective of how they see the game as well, isn't it? So even if it was, say, an Ajax box, which can be developed into something, say, maybe middle of the park, it can be developed out to wide play, or if it's from deep, pushing out. So as you're saying, it's the way you develop it. Just when we were talking about setbacks there as well. Obviously, one of the biggest setbacks for everybody just now is this pandemic. How have you been dealing with it, both like personally and like in coaching as well? Because I know it must be hard, like try to get everything back sorted and get the boys back in.
Yeah, I mean, the world has seen something, and football has seen something that, you know, we'll probably never see in our lifetime again. But something's come along there. That, you know, has caught us all by surprise. And I'll be honest with you, it's been challenging at times. I think time has moved on. I think in terms of the way that it's been handled, you know, it's like coaches make mistakes. I'm sure if the government had to go into a new pandemic next week, you know, they would have learnt a great deal from the previous one there, or other countries. You know, there's no difference. You know, you look at New Zealand, who seem to be bouncing, and batting it away. But overall, it's been challenging. Not only, I think footballers, in particular at professional level, were blessed a bit there, Louis, you know, in terms that they had a get out, you know, a couple of times a week. They had their game on the Saturday, but, you know, the whole world suffered with that. And for me, everybody was in a panic to what's going to happen. Is there going to be football? Is there not going to be football? Is the club's going to survive? And then everything starts to, and the goalposts changed every single week within that. And it was challenging. Players, how do you keep them motivated? You know, because it was going from one week to the next that, we're about to start that week, and then something else would come in, and you had to handle the goalpost moved, you had to do testing, etc. And when the second pandemic had hit, or the second lockdown had hit, we had learnt a great deal from the first one, and we'd done a lot of things a lot different. You know, we'd be connected as a whole group on a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Saturday. And that might have only been for 30 minutes, but at least we were all together for that period of time. And you were with the familiar faces. And it was really just to be ticking over. And it wasn't really so much as in the physical aspect of things. And Louis, I think the second lockdown was more to do with everybody's well-being and their mental health rather than anything else.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I'm starting up my own mental health charity. It's going to be the sponsor of today's video, actually, Team Talk. And it's trying to get, obviously, it's focusing on men, and we're going to try and link it in with football as well. So, as you're saying, in that bubble, it allows the players to get back to having a social standard as well.
Yeah, I think that was very important because, you know, in lockdown, I think, and you do get players that maybe felt a wee bit sorry for themselves, etc. I thought we were fortunate to get away with what we did in the pandemics and the lockdowns, etc. And my biggest challenge was obviously the most important people at any football club is the supporters, the people that will always be there when managers, players and that just pass through and visit. You know, the life and soul of the club, what supporters invest, what they invest emotionally, financially, and with their time. They'll always be there. And that was the difficult ones for me. And I was doing 2 to 3 video calls for supporters, you know, and people that were struggling day in and day out, you know, to get them through. There was a few that we lost, a few, you know, of our beloved fans through the illness, etc. The way it maybe affected people's mental health, the way it took them away from us suddenly and unexpectedly, you know. So, you know, I feel we were a wee bit fortunate, and, you know, as much as we're getting a little bit of relief and we're getting just under 500 into the stadiums and that at this minute in time, you know, the biggest thing for me is that connection again with the fans, because I think they, in football terms, are the ones that have suffered the most. And that, I mean the public when I mean the fans. They have been absolutely fantastic, and many of them, in a lot of clubs, you know, still investing their money, you know, in the clubs at that particular time where they didn't even know what was going to be happening. So football's a game that connects so many people together, you know, that it brings that connection, it brings that togetherness, you know, which, you know, it brings compassion at times when it's needed. And I just hope now that if we are coming through the end of this, Louis, I just hope that emotional side of it and that caring side that everybody is showing throughout this pandemic, I hope it remains there.
Yeah, hopefully it can as well, and hopefully we are seeing through the end of it as well, because as you're saying, certainly football and all this has brought a lot more togetherness, and hopefully we can see that with getting more fans back in as well, and it can continue and we can see this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's okay, you know, even, you know, the mental health awareness season, there's some fantastic programmes in that out there. I think it's very important that, you know, it's okay for me, Lou, to say, how are you doing? I'm fine. That, you know, Guy, we think we're macho. We think, oh, I can get through that, but I'll get through it myself, you know, okay. No, it's okay to say that you're not okay. So it is. And I think that's a key message. It shouldn't be shunted on that it's a weakness. And, you know, certainly the way that companies, you know, have got involved in making the mental awareness side, the mental health awareness out there, you know, has got to be, you know, applauded in my opinion. And what it's certainly given me, I've done a few courses on it now. It's given me a wee insight to look at people in a different way, where you think their life is rosy, you know, and you know, you don't really know what anybody's walking going through until you maybe walk a day or two in their shoes.
Aye, that's the thing. Everybody's a closed book until you open it as well.
Yeah.
That's it. Just try to get the book open.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is to finish off, we're going to ask if you've got any advice for young coaches, so people like myself that are starting out within the sport and trying to get to points where you are just now and try to progress as well. Is there any advice for going through the struggles, or even just if you're hitting a brick wall at times with coaching?
Yeah, I think it's always the most important thing is that you make the environment safe, you make it healthy, and you make it enjoyable for the group. You know, I think that's the most important thing. I always recall at the level of where I was when I got into senior football, even head of youth down at Gretna when I took over that. And I don't mind sharing the experience of that, Louis. And looking back and reflecting, I would say I was a very selfish young coach.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean with that is I would do things with the kids that, you know, drills would be going fine. I would see something and I would adapt it, or I would progress it, but I progressed them too quickly.
Aye.
You know, rather than bedding that down and maybe having one for it, you know, but I would be doing it for myself just to see if it worked, you know. So I was very, very selfish, you know, in my early coaching career. And it then quickly hit me that, you know, if you were going to succeed and going to survive, everything had to be, you know, that it was geared up towards the players. The players were the most important, what they got out of the session. Know what I could go and reflect, you know, and think and tweak one or two things that I could have done better after it. And that was the most important thing. Early doors, you know, the stops, the starts, it would, and if you can imagine that you've maybe got a drill just going and then bang, it's going through it and they're enjoying it, and then I come in, stop it, add another progression, you're stripping it back again until they get that, and then that goes again for a wee bit, you know, just let them go and play. And what I would say, we're always looking for the best practices. And if I say to you, and you get in your coaching Bible or in your laptop there, Louis, and I bet you, you know, there's coaches out there that they've got crossing and finishing drills, they've got pressing drills, they've got possession drills, and I bet you they've got loads of them. And you say, well, I've done that one. Why do we not just stick to three of each that we know work very, very well and stick with them? You know, and maybe adapt to that. If you, rather than, you know, I get that you've got to keep the players stimulated and keep them guessing at times and challenge them. But if something is right to do, then do it, you know. And I think my advice to young coaches would be always be enthusiastic, always gear your session around the group and the age level that you're coaching it. And, you know, the most important thing is that they come in with a smile, but the most important thing is they go out bouncing with a smile, you know, that they've thoroughly enjoyed it. And that would be my biggest coaching, my biggest piece of advice for young coaches. Make it all about the players.
That's fantastic advice. That's advice that I'm going to be taking on as well, because I've found myself, just like we're saying, especially doing sessions, I'm like, right, let's try to push this on a bit so I can see how this goes. And you see it, they start to lose interest if you keep on doing it all the time. They're getting into this and throwing away the fun.
Even the time scale, you know, you maybe got your hour and a half slot or whatever it may be, you know, the time that and we're reduced maybe to half a pitch at times as coaches. We've all been there, you've got to adapt. But the time it then takes you to go and set up another part of drill, if you can't get it all in the one area, you know, that would be another big part of my advice to the young coaches would be is to try and plan your session that, you know, it's minimum movement of cones, maybe a tweak one or two here, and try and let the session run fully through that way, you know, with your sizes, etc. And the age level. But for me, the most important thing is let them go and enjoy it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Danny. It's been a great podcast, probably one of the ones I've enjoyed most. And we look forward to seeing plenty more success in the future as well from you as well.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, Louis, and you know, keep up the good work that you're doing yourself. I love the fact that you're, you know, involved with the coaching, the mental health, you know, in your podcast. So I wish you well and every success that you turn your hand to.
Brilliant, Danny. Cheers. Cheers. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
See you later, guys. Cheers.